Welcome back to SpiritLifter. Today, we're not concerned with a specific brew so much as a series of them. First, a primer. You have heard there is something of a controversy between the brands of Budweiser brewed in the United States and Czechia, I take it. For those who haven't, the name Budweiser comes from Budweis, the German name for a city in modern Czechia called... In this city, a brewery operated by the Czech government still exports their brand and has been in a trademark dispute with the much larger St. Louis-based mega brewer, who sell the same name. As the originators, the Czechs claim that the use of the name by their American competition amounts to infringement, and that it is a thinly veiled attempt to piggyback off the success of the brand from Bohemia. Now, what if I were to tell you that further east behind the former Iron Curtain, there is an even more widespread name for beer that virtually everyone lays claim to, and more critically, everyone gets, without much dispute over branding. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Zhigulevskoe. If you care to marvel at how many beers use this name, just type it into your search engine. You'll likely keep scrolling for a while, through a sea of what some call Zhiguli for short. Not shy from using titles made famous in the old world, AB InBev too markets their own brand of the ubiquitous name, with the company listing at least 5 different takes on the brew. Here we have just 4 examples that I picked up on a whim at the local Slavic market in my town. They are all light lagers between 4 and 4.5% alcohol by volume. They are mostly unremarkable, and they all share the same name. The one in the stubby 1.5-liter jug is from Poltava, Ukraine, while the large bottle with the yellow label comes from the capital Kiev. The other 2 are Russian. First, the stubby canned Firmenoye clocks in at 4.5%, while the Vyšší sort falls a little lower at 4%. Just to confuse you more, both these Russian varieties are brewed by Baltika in St. Petersburg. Just so we're all up to speed, the same brewery produces 2 different beers with the same designation. Worse yet, Baltika produces at least another 5 that have Zhigulevskoe somewhere in the name. It seems companies are tripping over each other, and even internally amongst themselves, to name their brand the same as all the others. What the hell's going on here? I admit, a full grasp of this situation is beyond me. Being able to claim otherwise would require a command of Russian that I simply do not have. However, with what little research I have conducted, if true, the name that graces beer labels from Ukraine to Armenia to Kazakhstan to here in Germany is the result of a social experiment conducted in the early days of the Soviet Union. The story begins in 1881, when an aristocratic entrepreneur from the Austro-Hungarian Empire named Alfred von Focano found what became the original Zhigulevskoe brewery in Samara. According to a descendant still living in Austria, Focano said of the Samara Oblast, "Of land there is more than enough. Hops and malts we can take care of ourselves." Borrowing from the name of a nearby mountain range called the Zhiguli, his operation became famous for its Vienna-style lager, a malty brew that found favor up and down the banks of the Volga. Between the rich soil to provide for abundant grain and pure river water, his business thrived until 1917, when the Bolsheviks seized control and he was expelled in 1926, ultimately dying in Austria just 3 years later. Under a new regime, the brewery had to sever ties with any remnants of a counter-revolutionary past. Beer, like many commodities, underwent a Sovietization, whereby Pilsners became Russkoye, or Russian. Munich Dunkels became Ukrainskoye, or Ukrainian, and Von Focano's Vienna Lager became Zhigulevskoe. With a centralized state apparatus, it is estimated that this brew from Samara accounted for as much as 90% of all beer output in the Soviet Union. As such, the name was well known and widespread across the Second World during the Cold War. With the dismantling of the USSR in the early 90s, and independent states scrambling for a sense of familiarity through times of tremendous socio-political turmoil, many now privately operated breweries seized on the name. It had not been trademarked, and in the confusion following Soviet dissolution, if you had the equipment, you could produce your own Zhigulevskoe as you pleased. Some companies even market their line by appealing to nostalgia for Soviet times to this very day, such as this brand featuring the iconic SSSR letters encased in a curved pentagon. This is just one of the dozens upon dozens of renditions of this brew. Allegedly, unless you've had the original from Samara, you've only had cheap imitations at best. Well, looks like I'm waiting until the real thing shows up. There you go. A summary thrown together by someone who doesn't speak Russian about how one name becomes so dominant in brewing across the former Soviet Union. For what it's worth, I've tried 3 of these 4. So, on with the details of the one I have yet to sample. The Vyšší sort of Žigulevskoe measures in at an even 4% alcohol by volume, with no indication of IBU to be found. Although named for a brew inspired by Vienna, this particular rendition is more a generic Euro lager. It pours a pale golden color, with any carbonation dissipating quickly, leaving behind a flat and unremarkable liquid. For how light it is, though, it's not a challenge to finish the bottle. Perhaps it holds more novelty appeal if it was something remembered fondly in the sunset years of the Soviet Union, but beyond that scenario, it's an import not worth much attention. Thank you kindly for watching. I don't know about you, but I'm holding out hope that there's something special about the one in Samara that inspired all the imitations. Maybe I'll get my hands on it one day. Until then, let's raise our glasses and say... Do dna.